1925. Paris. The Eiffel Tower, the city's most iconic symbol, continued to represent the grandeur of France from its towering position. However, unbeknownst to most at the time, a man was preparing to sell the Eiffel Tower, and he was going to do this with what appeared to be a completely legal offer. This man was Victor Lustig, known as the Count, and he is considered one of the cleverest and most cunning con artists in history. He wasn't just a simple scammer, he was a master at the art of persuasion. Let's get to know him a little better. Victor Lustig was born on January 4th, 1890, in Bohemia, part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He dropped out of school at a young age and ventured into the world of crime. His quick intellect and ability to speak 5 languages fluently helped him rapidly become a professional con artist. He could observe people and instantly spot their weaknesses. But what set him apart from a common fraudster was his courage. He didn't settle for small-time cons. He was always chasing bigger and bolder scams. Lustig's criminal career began by deceiving wealthy passengers on luxury ships. He would present them with high-profit investment opportunities, gain their trust with fake documents, and then take their money and disappear. But that was just the beginning. Lustig was the kind of person who pulled off the kind of big cons everyone dreams of. One of Lustig's most famous cons was the Romanian box, a fake machine. This box was a small wooden box said to contain complex mechanisms and chemicals. Lustig claimed that the device could duplicate a banknote placed inside and produce an exact copy. Indeed, a fake banknote would appear, but only once. Here's how Lustig did it. He placed a few fake banknotes and pieces of white paper resembling banknotes inside the device beforehand. When he operated the device in front of his victims, the so-called duplicated banknotes would come out. However, these were the banknotes he had placed in the machine earlier. Once the victims believed this was real, Lustig would have already taken their money and vanished. He deceived countless people using this method. Greed was his greatest weapon. When people became captivated by the idea of easy money, their suspicions vanished. But Lustig's audacity didn't stop there. He even scammed America's most famous gangster, Al Capone. To earn Capone's trust, Lustig offered him a great investment opportunity. Capone gave Lustig $50,000 and set a 2-month deadline. Lustig claimed he would double the money and return it. He took the money, but didn't run. Instead, he kept it in a safe for 2 months. When the time was up, he returned the money, saying the investment had failed. This was a situation Capone had never encountered before. In his world, everyone tried to scam each other, but Lustig, by returning the money, made himself appear as an honest man. Capone, believing that Lustig was in financial trouble, helped him with a $5,000 donation. This was exactly what Lustig wanted. He hadn't just scammed a gangster, he had gained his trust in the process. There are many more scams to mention. However, all these frauds had turned Victor Lustig into a legend, and the greatest con of his life was yet to happen. By 1925, France was on the brink of an economic collapse. The public had lost trust in the government. The Eiffel Tower, the city's greatest symbol, was seen by some as a source of pride, while others considered it an unnecessary expense. Lustig saw this environment as an opportunity. As always, he would use human psychology to his advantage. He would convince them, deceive them, and sell the Eiffel Tower. Now, let's dive into the details of one of the wildest scams in history. It all began with a news story. The report mentioned that the government had spent too much on maintaining the Eiffel Tower, and it was now being considered for dismantling. The opportunity Lustig had been waiting for had finally arrived. As always, he carefully analyzed the situation and would skillfully use people's fears and hopes. The economic uncertainty in Paris created the perfect environment for a massive scam. Lustig decided to impersonate a government official. Within a short time, he presented himself as a senior official from the French Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs, complete with fake documents. The papers were so professional that they were impossible to doubt. Next, he organized a very special meeting at one of Paris's most luxurious hotels, the Hôtel de Crillon. He invited 5 of the country's leading scrap metal dealers, all of whom were wealthy businessmen looking for opportunities to bid on government contracts. The day of the meeting arrived, and Monsieur Lustig greeted the guests with great seriousness. After offering drinks, he began speaking. "Gentlemen, this meeting is completely confidential. There are certain decisions the government has made that cannot be shared with the public. Due to financial difficulties, the government has decided to dismantle and sell the Eiffel Tower. However, because this could provoke a public backlash, we must handle the process swiftly and discreetly." The men in the room were stunned. Just recently, they had heard on the news that the tower needed repairs. In fact, the Eiffel Tower had been built as a temporary structure for the 1889 exposition, but over time, maintenance costs had risen. With the economic crisis in full swing, the government was faced with spending millions of dollars to repair the tower. Many Parisians believed the Eiffel Tower was too conspicuous and would be happy to see it gone. For the businessmen, this was the most outrageous thing they had ever heard. But Lustig spoke with such confidence that they didn't dare question him. "Gentlemen," Lustig continued, "you've been invited here to make an offer to the government for the Eiffel Tower. If we come to an agreement, you will have the opportunity to dismantle the tower and use its metal." Lustig had everything planned. He handed the businessmen fake documents with detailed information such as the tower's tonnage, all stamped with the government's official seal. When the businessmen calculated the profit they could make from scrap metal, their eyes nearly popped out of their heads. After the meeting, Lustig escorted them to a waiting limousine and showed them around the tower, flashing a fake official badge. After the tour, he thanked them and asked them to submit their offers to his hotel room in 4 days. Throughout the meeting, the businessmen were eager not to miss out on the opportunity to strike a deal with the government. However, among them, André Poisson was the one most determined to win the bid. He wanted to be known as the man who bought and demolished the Eiffel Tower. Lustig noticed Poisson's ambition and acted quickly. A few days later, Poisson received a note telling him that he had been selected out of the 5 top bidders. The note instructed him to come to the hotel within 2 days with a check for 250,000 francs or higher, about $1 million in today's terms. When he presented the check, he would receive official documents confirming he was the owner of the Eiffel Tower. Poisson was excited. He would go down in history as the man who bought and demolished the Eiffel Tower. However, as he made his way to the hotel with the check, doubt began to creep in. Why were they meeting in a hotel instead of a government building? Why hadn't he heard from any other officials? Could this be a trap? At that moment, Lustig was still talking about technical details regarding the tower. Poisson, listening with hesitation, considered backing out. But then Lustig shifted the conversation. He suddenly started talking about his low salary, his wife's expensive fur coat request, how he wasn't appreciated for his hard work, and the slow pace of bureaucracy. Then he implied that to speed things up, small gifts needed to be given to the officials. Poisson realized that Lustig was asking for a bribe, but instead of getting angry, he relaxed. Now he was sure Lustig was a legitimate official because in his past experiences, government officials always asked for bribes. Poisson regained trust in Lustig and, in return, offered him a bribe, handing over a few thousand francs along with his check. In return, he received an impressive invoice and several fake documents. Dreaming of the profit he would make, Poisson left the hotel. Lustig, after taking the money, wasted no time. He immediately fled to Austria by train and went into hiding for a while. He had just pulled off what may have been the wildest heist in history. He had sold the Eiffel Tower, and no one had noticed. However, as time passed, he noticed something odd. There were no scandalous news stories or warnings from the police. This silence began to disturb him. He had pulled off something huge, but no one had even noticed. Lustig had expected to shake Paris to its core, but no one had heard about the heist. This bothered his ego. Monsieur Poisson never went to the police. He knew all too well how badly he would be vilified if even a word spread about being the victim of such an absurd scam. Forget about the public shame. In terms of his business career, it would be suicide. Lustig saw this as a flaw. He wanted more of a reaction. At that moment, a wild idea struck him. Why not do it again? 6 months later, Lustig returned to Paris. Same method, same deception, same documents, and once again, the lie about the Eiffel Tower being dismantled. This time, his target was a new scrap metal dealer. Just like the first time, he organized meetings at the luxurious Crillon Hotel. With his confident demeanor and professional approach, his new victim believed him to be a legitimate government official. And, as you can imagine, the plan worked flawlessly again. Lustig managed to sell the Eiffel Tower for the second time. This time he received an even larger payment, roughly over $1.5 million. Just like before, he took the bribe and left France with the money. But this time, things were different. The second scrap metal dealer couldn't shake off the growing suspicion within him. When he went to the authorities to inquire about the sale of the Eiffel Tower, the truth came out. French officials stated that such a sale was impossible, and the man realized he'd been scammed. He immediately went to the police. As a result, Lustig's name made headlines throughout France. He was no longer just a con man. He became a legend as the man who had sold the Eiffel Tower twice. Realizing he could no longer hide in France, Lustig decided to leave Europe entirely and head to America. But even on the new continent, he didn't abandon his old ways. After fleeing to America, Lustig became involved in counterfeiting. He began producing high-quality fake banknotes and circulating them, making a fortune in the process. This allowed him to continue his life of crime. Throughout his criminal career, Lustig used many aliases and was arrested and released from jail countless times. Some sources claim that he was arrested over 40 times, and each time either escaped while waiting for trial or convinced the police that they had arrested the wrong person. However, in 1935, he was captured by the FBI and sentenced to 20 years in prison. He was sent to the famous Alcatraz prison and died there around 7 years later. Victor Lustig's story is one of cunning and intelligence, pushing the boundaries of what is possible. His greatest weapon wasn't fake documents or criminal accomplices. What made him legendary was his extraordinary ability to read human psychology. In every scam, he found the weakest point in his victim. He earned trust, fueled their arrogance, triggered their greed, and eliminated their doubts. Victor Lustig's name is among the greatest con artists in history, but to see him only as a criminal is to read only half of the story. He was a master of manipulation, capable of lying right into someone's eyes, building his words like bricks, and playing his game even on the most skeptical individuals. Today, his name may not be widely remembered, but the legacy he left still lives on. Because throughout history, behind every great scheme, there is always someone who understands human nature better than anyone else. And perhaps the most dangerous part is that someone like him might still be somewhere among us.